Hey beautiful people, it's Moksha here again with another painting video for you. Today in this video I want to show you how you can make a painting something kind of like this. I'm going to start with a blank canvas and I'll show you how in just a few short hours you can make your own abstract painting. And if this interests you, please watch on. This is a really exciting way to work. It's exciting because it's a collaboration with the unknown. And when you work in this method that I'm about to show you, the results are always unpredictable, always surprising, always wow-inducing. And you're going to be so inspired. You're going to be making probably dozens of these paintings because it's just so much fun and it's really quite easy. So let's just jump right into it. The way that this process starts is with a technique called Decalcomania. This is a big word that just means we're going to be making textures using a plastic bag. And you can use a garbage bag, you can use produce bags that you find at the grocery store, any kind of plastic laying around from whatever, or funny enough, you can use the plastic that your canvas came in. Ta-da! But if you don't have any of these things, then you can use whatever you have laying around. I've even used paper towels or rags or things like that. So let's just jump right into it and I'll show you how this works. I'm using these golden fluid acrylics because I really like the consistency. Straight out of the bottle, they're ready to paint with. I don't have to add a lot of water or mix them down to get them to be smooth. It's up to you entirely which color you start with. I chose green because I like green, but you could start with blue or pretty much anything. And I'm going to pour out a good amount of paint because we need to cover the entire canvas with this. And I like to start with sort of a wide, soft brush like this. It's very soft and flexible. It's harder to get the same kind of effect with like a bristle brush, for example. And so these soft brushes I really like. And we're going to need some water. You want to get the brush wet. And I'll add a little bit of water here with my spray bottle. So we're looking for this kind of consistency, thinned down but not too watery. And I'll just start covering an area at a time. And then take your plastic, lay it down and smush it around. You can kind of play with the way the wrinkles are. Pull it up and voila! You have a beautiful texture. Take a good amount of paint and repeat the same process on another area. Smush it around. Voila. Beautiful. Pretty cool, huh? And we're just gonna move around and cover the whole canvas like this. Have to be too careful, but you can have some fun with the way you lay the paint down initially before you put the plastic on top. I love the way Decalcomania creates instant textures. There's some really fabulous artists that have used this technique. one of my favorite artists of all time who happened to use Decalcomania is Max Ernst. If you're not familiar with his work, I highly recommend looking him up, checking out some of his work. He would start with Decalcomania, I believe, and then cut out shapes so that, for example, there's a beautiful painting of a woman wearing like a strange cloak or a fur coat or something, and the entire coat area is Decalcomania, which you can tell he laid down first and then cut around her to get the coat to pop off the background. Really fabulous work. Max Ernst is his name. Check him out. So I'm just working around the canvas, smushing it around, having fun, not too worried about what happens here. Keep in mind, this is just a base coat. This is the vast majority of this is going to be covered up in the next layer, in the next phase. Last section. Lay it down and smush it around. This is Decalcomania. The texture is completely different than the rest of it, but that's okay. And then sometimes when there's still wet paint on the plastic, you can move it around the different parts. You get more of a dry, kind of more sparse texture that way. Maybe I'll fill a couple little holes. And that's pretty much it. So here's what I came up with in the first pass with Decalcomania. As you can see, it's very monochromatic. It lacks contrast and a lot of interest. Although I have to say there's times when I'm pulling that plastic off and the texture underneath is starting to reveal itself for the first time, and I'm like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. This is so cool. And then I don't want to paint over it, and that creates all kinds of problems because it's only the first layer, right? It may look really cool, but it's just texture. It's just a foundation for what we're going to do next. So with that, I'm just going to point you at the canvas, and we're going to keep painting. For the dark parts of the painting, to contrast the layer that we've already laid down, we're going to use a very dark color. And this is a combination of phthalo green and alizarin crimson. These two colors create kind of a classic chromatic black. That means that it looks black, but it still has more color to it. So if you mix these two colors 50-50, you get something that looks pretty close to black, but you can go a little more red or a little more green if you'd like. And because my base coat is green, I'm going to make this dark color just a little more on the red side. And I think that'll add some nice chroma contrast, color contrast. And I'll just slightly spray the canvas again. I just want it a little damp, not wet. And start laying in your shapes. So this time I'm not going all over trying to cover all the canvas like I was in the first phase. This time I'm creating more interesting shapes and starting to think about, I don't know, you could sort of relate it to like an emotional quality. Like, are your shapes soft and fluffy, or are they more angular? And this time, instead of just pulling the plastic straight off, I'm going to try sort of manipulating it as I remove it. And you can have so much fun with this. I'm sort of staggering pulling it and jumping it, and it's creating repeating shapes and things that are really beautiful. So you really have a lot of creative choices here at this phase, where the first one seemed more kind of just random and quick and didn't quite matter as much because we're covering up that entire first layer for the most part. But at this phase, we're creating kind of more of the body of the painting. This is going to have a very strong influence on the final painting. So in a sense, we have more. In a sense, we're being more sort of artistic or creative in this phase. Love those shapes. You can do stuff in a few seconds with plastic wrap that would take you hours and hours to create with a brush, and you'd never get the same kind of organic beauty that you get with this technique. So, still random with my brush strokes, but a little more thoughtful. Just play around. You can't really mess this up. The thing is, if you do this phase and you don't like it, you can do a third layer. You could go back to a white or a much brighter, a much lighter color, and do another layer of Decalcomania to sort of cover up areas that maybe you're not totally happy with. And then go back again, and on top of that layer you would add another layer of darks, perhaps. But there's no rules. This is just one way of working with Decalcomania. It's a creative process, so the sky is the limit. You can really do anything you like. And again, there's just a little paint left on the plastic, and so I'm sort of just getting a little extra texture without even adding new paint. I'll rotate the canvas because it's a little easier to work from this side. But I really like what's going on here so far. Got a little glare there in the bottom right corner, unfortunately. Sometimes as I get into this second phase, at least, this is when I start to get a feel for kind of the nature of the painting emotionally. It often feels kind of oceanic to me. The last painting I showed you, the reference painting in the beginning of this video, felt more like a jungle, kind of looking up at the canopy or something like that. I'm starting to see creatures emerge from the chaos. Maybe a fish. Faces. Somebody once said to me, you know you're doing it right if you start to see faces everywhere. Being very strategic about where I lay down the brush strokes, because I don't want to block my entire background out. I like that light green showing through. Yeah, I'm creating a lot of motion and movement here now. And in the next phase, we'll continue to work these shapes that we have here. You'll see soon. It's getting pretty close. I like how it's feeling so far. Some little doodles here and there. Yeah, this feels pretty good. Looks good, looks pretty cool. And I'll just go in to a few places here and there and finesse a little bit. This is where we start to paint. And this is really what the next phase is all about. Except we'll be using different colors and bringing in some white highlights, finding the shapes we love and really bringing those out. You want to, at this point, be looking for forms that you like, kind of squint your eyes, stand back. In the next phase, we'll be creating more atmosphere. Certain areas will get pushed back. Other things will come forward. I think it's about time to bring this back up to the easel now. And we'll get into the fine tuning. This is my favorite part, this next phase. This is where it gets really fun. So here's what I came up with in the first pass. The painting's really starting to come to life. A lot of new forms are taking shape. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of great texture happening. And this is where I want you to really stand back and look at your painting, maybe turn it a couple different ways, a couple different directions, and start to see, look into it. What do you feel from it? What do you see hidden in there? You know, this is the phase where you'll start to see a lot of faces and critters and things starting to emerge from the random organicness of the two phases, the two layers of paint that we've already put down. So in a sense, this is sort of the most artistic phase as well, because now we're making more personal choices and deciding what to focus on and what to sort of push back. So a lot of this next process involves adding more detail, adding more color, pushing and pulling the values to achieve the depth and more atmosphere on the canvas. And if you don't know what that means, I'll show you here in a minute. This is the next phase, and I'm going to zoom in on the canvas so you can see more clearly what I'm doing.